Montgomery Hunt has appeared in 11 major motion pictures. He found immediate success for his gritty performance as the heroin addict in Salvador Montague's Smooth Justice, as well as the notorious pimp in the indie hit Here Comes Mr. America. Montgomery Hunt is best known for playing a bisexual gigolo in Sally Beth Tolbert's cinematic masterpiece Ride the Snake. He has appeared in numerous plays, most notably on Broadway, where he starred as the title character in A Country Song for Bobby Long. Throughout his storied career, Montgomery Hunt's performances often mirrored his off-screen persona. He struggled mightily with addiction and, after a 20-year hiatus from performing, found his saving grace in sobriety. He now focuses on sailing and painting. His latest collection will appear at the St. Petersburg Museum of Modern Art. Hi, my name is James Miller, and this is The James Miller Show. Monty, it seems like we share something in common. You recently purchased a boat and have it moored in Seattle's Elliott Bay. I have a sailboat there as well, and I was absolutely beside myself when I learned that you were anchored not 100 yards from me.
Oh yeah, you got a boat there too? I didn't know you were a sailor.
Yes, I am. Very much so, ever since I was a boy.
Yeah, but you like that a lot. That's great, that's great. No, I love Seattle. It's a dangerous town. Gets a bad rap because it's like, what do you call it?
Rich man's Los Angeles.
I thought you were going to say poor man's San Francisco. No, it often gets overshadowed by Vancouver. The entire Northwest has always been special to me. Mountains, the mist. It's like a big grey wilderness of shadows and pain. I like to go down to the wharf and hang out to the market, eating the fresh fish and the blackberries, and then head for the marina. Hell, now that I know you got a rig there, I'll avoid it altogether.
Talk to me about childhood in Ireland.
I was a wanderer, kept to myself, created stories in my head. This is when kids still played outside a lot, James. A lot more than they do nowadays. I spent a lot of time outdoors, hell of a lot of time roaming the streets and the alleyways, thinking about how one day I'd become a star.
You always knew that you wanted to be an actor, even as a child?
I used to ride my bike a lot, thinking about how to make it in the pictures. Truth is, I just wanted a gig that would land me a bunch of chicks, but you wouldn't know about that, would you?
I'm curious, Monty. What made you so cognizant of your dreams? This is truly unparalleled. You absolutely projected your own reality.
Well, that's the secret.
Secret?
Projection. I remember every Saturday night me ma and me da would put on these classic pictures on the telly with all the greats. I'm talking Marlowe Hemlock, Jimmy Witherspoon, Bill Keffer, Cheryl Toone.
The original stars.
Yeah, I'd be sitting 2 feet in front of the screen watching these actors working at the craft. Their work was so free back then, James. None of the stiff hypernaturalism. More nuance, you know? There was so much burning under the surface that I really think is missing now. It's like the fire went out.
I can just envision you as a child watching these great performances, forecasting your dreams.
It's funny, from my bedroom window I could see Mount Errigal, and I used to look at my journey in life like that of a man summited in the peak of that great mountain. I'd go on these long hikes in the woods outside our home. I'd pull out my camera and I'd take these black and white photographs of the snow cascading down the upper crest. I wanted nothing more than to summit that peak and to stake a brilliant yellow flag in that snow.
Why yellow?
Why not?
I absolutely love that.
30 years later, it became my first expedition. I planted that yellow flag right there in Mount Errigal.
Is it still there?
I'd say it don't matter. It's just a wooden stick with some yellow tarp and a black circle I'd painted in the middle. This is before the Annapurna trip, and then the debacle at K2.
Tell me about K2.
We're about 70 yards from the summit. I slip on a patch of ice, fall into a crevasse, break my left leg. The Sherpas find me the following morning, shivering and covered in blood. Sometimes I say you had to leave that mountain alone.
It's my understanding that you suffered hypothermia, a fractured fibula, and third-degree frostbite. Is that accurate?
Actually, I had 3 toes amputated, lost all but 2 of my teeth. After that, spent a year in Kathmandu recovering in a monastery and searching for Christ. Thought I'd found him in college, but no, it was really just mescaline.
And you studied performance at Washington?
UW, yeah. Yeah, I had 2 cousins that lived in Washington, Seattle area, so I moved over there, got a full ride. I was a part of their theater program. Very avant-garde. We were doing stuff that wasn't being done. My first performance, I played The Old Man in the Chairs by Ionesco. You know Ionesco?
Brilliant playwright.
Theater of the absurd. The set was minimalist. We had nothing but a black box with 2 chairs, and my castmate was a stellar actress named Sabrina. A real pistol, a firecracker. She'd probably a 10. Unfortunate what happened to her. Anyhow, in the plot of the Chairs, my character has to entertain these guests who weren't actually there.
Remarkable. So they never showed up?
No, the other way around. They were as invisibles.
Ah, I see.
Here's this big Lucy in the sky with diamonds kind of thing, very Ionesco. And I had this long monologue where I'm telling all these ghosts about this past life I'd had, or hadn't had. Very ahead of its time, James.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You were suspended?
Expelled, yeah. Dean kicked me out for selling dope out of my co-op with a couple of headbangers. Thought I was a gangster, but I was really just some punk kid from Donegal who wanted to look fresh for the co-eds. This was a different time. Big sex thing going on back then.
Oh, I remember that. I'm curious, what part of Seattle were you staying at?
Well, it wasn't Capitol Hill, I can tell you that, James.
Come on, play fair.
No, this was just some cheap flat in Bellevue. That whole Bellevue scene. It's like you take a bunch of coins out of your pocket, throw away the nickels, keep all the dimes. I don't remember much from that time.
They say if you can remember your college years, you probably
Weren't there, yeah. I never liked that expression. Always thought it was a bit overplayed, a bit campy. Anyhow, after getting kicked out of the UW, I fiddled around the wharf for about a year. Taught myself how to sail, how to fish for steelhead in the big rivers.
Montgomery, how did you wind up in Chicago?
Well, to be honest, I was so blitzkrieg, I just pulled out a map, closed my eyes and pointed. My finger landed on Illinois, so I figured, what the feck, moved to Chicago.
I hear the theater scene in Chicago is bursting with energy. Very top-notch.
Especially at the Steppenwolf. I worked at the Wolf until I was 24. Consider that me formal training as an artist. And these theater chicks in Chicago, they were off the rails. Real yo-yos.
How did you begin your journey?
Cleaning up other people's fecal matter. No, seriously, I got me a gig in the lobby cleaning toilets, and then before you know it, I'm working the house as an usher. Great gig. Lot of damsels in distress, if you know what I mean. Geriatric damsels, but Lord have mercy, were they fun? I got to see every show for free, James. Othello, Streetcar, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It was real training. I saw me Lionel Jones and Rosemary Sims.
You saw Rosemary?
Yeah, I used to sneak back into her dressing room. We'd smoke a spliff. I'd ask her what choices she was making. It's all about choices. And Rosemary was fearless. Lionel, too. Every scene, Lionel comes on stage. He's done something with his hands. Had these huge hands. Fingers like cucumbers. You probably know exactly what I'm talking about there, don't you, James?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't make it to his funeral. It really bums me out. Couldn't get out of that thing in Guatemala. Talk about a mess.
But you and Rosemary, actually.
We were together for a year and a half before all that stuff goes down with her and me and Lionel. And Rosie was a gem. She was at least a 7. Lionel finally forgave me, that chump. Rosie was 25 years older than me. Carried it like a champ, though, wouldn't you say?
Now, this was before your first role in Smooth Justice.
Smooth Justice was a direct result of me work at the Steppenwolf, James. It took me 4.5 years of understudy. Way it happened was, I'm acting alongside Rosemary Sims and Desmond Nelson in Falsey Brewster's production A Long Way Gone. Opening night comes along, some agent named Marilyn gives me her digits, tells me to fly to LA when production wraps. Little do I know she works at CAC, Creative Artists Collective, and Rosie was devastated. But you know what they say, enter late, exit early.
I like that.
Go figure, of course you like that. So Marilyn hooks me up with an audition for a character part in the new Salvador Montague picture, Smooth Justice. I kill the audition, land the part, I'm playing the junkie. I didn't really have to play the junkie. I just kind of showed up, said me lines. Anyhow, I'm emulating Marlowe back then, Marlowe Hemlock, of course. Even told the crew to hold up the feckin' cue cards, but what are you gonna do, right?
Describe your method of preparation.
Well, at UW was all about Strasbourg. Stanislavski to Strasbourg, that is. I learned I could enter into these characters' minds, their hearts, their guts, through emotional recall. I really tried to sink my spirit into these parts, James. Mentally, emotionally, physically.
And so when you were cast as the addict in Smooth Justice, you physically
hit those high notes, yeah. Probably wasn't best for me development as an artist, because I camped on the Skid Row for about 3 months prior to shooting, trying to feel the pain of poverty and loss.
Come on, you actually lived on Skid Row?
Of course I lived on Skid Row. This was the method, James. Me wasn't fecking around. These hobos were selling me dope on the cheap, and I didn't have any money, because it was my first job, so I stayed me in this encampment with pushers and pimps, trying to get to know the part, really understand what it means to be an addict, and I'd literally sell my stuff sometimes, just to get a fix.
Now, when you say sell your stuff, do you mean like a tent or your personal belongings?
I mean my cock, James.
That's a good one, Monty.
I'm being serious, James. That's what I did for me art. I became the part, and then the part became me. And that part was pain. Me and these hobos used to have this saying, you got a hangover, black tar heroin. You got an STD, black tar heroin. You just went down on some basehead beneath a bridge for a bag of smack and feel like a piece of human garbage, black tar heroin. Always helps with the shame.
The LA Critics Association once said, Montgomery Hunt lives, breathes, and sweats the role of Shooter Dominguez in Smooth Justice. His performance is so riveting, you can feel the pangs and arrows of harrowing addiction. Needless to say, if Mr. Hunt isn't nominated for an Academy Award, there will be no Smooth Justice after all.
Yeah, should have carried me to the moon. Only problem was I couldn't kick it after we wrapped, so I ended up just going back to the Skid.
You went back to Skid Row? You've gotta be teasing me.
You wish I was teasing you, don't you, James? No, after Smooth Justice wrapped, I really crashed and burned. Couldn't find me for about 3 years, James. Nobody. They sent out the search engines and everybody. Me ma and da lost their feckin' minds.
3 years? I had no idea you went that dormant. Tell me more.
Nobody wanted to work with me. I don't blame them. My cheeks were all sunken, had this pale, half-hearted look kinda like you.
Hey.
Anyhow, one day, I'm walking all the way down Wilshire Boulevard into CAC, into my agent's office. Marilyn was shaking, called security. Had this beard down to my chest. I said, no, it's me, Marilyn, it's Monty. And she said, get this, she goes, Monty? I said, Marilyn, listen, I need something. Couple bucks, and I'll do a part, anything. I'll do B films. She gets this genius idea. Brilliant woman. She says, can you handle the city?
Manhattan.
Manhattan. They were casting for a country song for Bobby Long at the Eugene O'Neill on Broadway. So I thought, sure, I can handle the city, Marilyn. Bada bing, bada bang. I pack a bag, board a plane. The rest is history. Of course, the first thing I do, head to the local shooting gallery, bang me a couple of shots with junkies, march straight to Broadway.
I can just see you, bag in hand, walking toward Times Square with nothing but your big dreams and a couple of bucks in your pocket.
Yeah, it wasn't that poetic, but it was better than turning tricks at the Rainbow Room.
Yeah, I do know what you're saying. And anyway, that's how you met Marlowe.
And that's how I met Marlowe. And look, Marlowe was about 60 at the time, James. Real tough guy, you know? A true New Yorker. Hyper masculine. But behind the mask, he was more like you. You and Marlowe would have had a ball, James. Loved Fire Island. Nobody talked about it back then. It's all come out now. Sad the way he died. But he really took me under his wing. I mean, he lets me crash with him at his loft in Tribeca. He was always sneaking out and hitting up this leather bondage club in Chelsea called Sticks and Stones. So I'd have the whole place to myself. It was this killer pad near Battery Park overlooking the Hudson River. Sometimes I'd just burn a fag on the balcony and listen to the sound of the wind and watch as the ferries crossed.
Sounds like a dream.
I was talking about the boats, James, the feckin' boats.
I knew you were gonna do that again. You.
Anyhow, first night of rehearsal, we're doing a read-through. I roll up my sleeves. Marlowe sees me track marks, sits me down, says, Money boy, I don't give a damn what you did out there in L.A. Here in New York, we don't play with needles. You got 3 days to shake it off, or else I'm personally gonna smack you around, put you right on a plane back to the jungle. He called L.A. the jungle. Anyhow, I call it the jungle now. So I end up back at the shooting gallery, begging this schizoid for pills to curb the withdrawals. So he lets me bob up and down for a bag of M30s. That way I didn't have to lie to Marlowe. End up costing me about 10 heads. So I always chewing this watermelon bubble gum just to get the metallic taste of the schizoid out of me gums.
Your performance in A Country Song for Bobby Long garnered stellar reviews from the Times as well as the New York Theater Club, who gave you 4 stars, writing, Montgomery Hunt is back. Following a 3-year hiatus, he has returned to his roots, burning up the stage with moxie, mojo, and truth.
I owe all me success to Marlowe.
What was it like performing next to Marlowe Hemlock?
That's the thing. It was never a performance with Marlowe. Instead of Marlowe becoming a character, it was the character becoming Marlowe.
So Marlowe inverted the entire process of preparing a role.
Oh, he inverted everything. You should have seen him on a date.
Ooh, I have chills.
Of course you do. That's the thing with Marlowe. He gives everyone chills. Every show he brought something different. One night Marlowe come on stage, his shirt unbuttoned, dripping sweat, ladies swooning everywhere. Next night he's peeling a goddamn cantaloupe with his bare hands. I remember one matinee, he burst through the door screaming, Sydney, Sydney, like his motherfucking hair's on fire. Helen Taylor's freaking out because it came from his guts, you know, his loins. And then Marlowe, get this, Marlowe run over, he grabs her, gives her a big slap on the arse, chases her around the stage, all mad as feck because, you know, her character's high on the dope. Wasn't in the script. And Helen was a real dame, James. A true 9-piece. Could play off Marlowe like a champion. Closing night, Marlowe brought out this big bottle of Miker's Mark, a couple of highball glasses. Helen winks at me. 2 of us start mad-libbing with Marlowe. Right there on stage, on Broadway. He's rewriting the script, James. Creates a new climax. Instead of the protagonist heading off to fight the Reds, now he's burning his goddamn draft card. And I said to myself, this is the greatest feckin' acting I ever seen.
Incredible. And that's how you learned to be an artist.
And that's how I learned to be an artist. Because what I learned from Marlowe Hemlock and Helen Taylor is this. It's not about how you prepare. It's not about what you say. It's about what you do.
What you do. What a beautiful, simple truth.
If it wasn't for Marilyn and Marlowe Hemlock and Helen Taylor, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. Because after the run, A Country Song for Bobby Long, well, it happened.
What happened? Tell me.
Sandra Tomaguchi found me in the green room. We had a couple of whiskey sours. She offers me the part of Thomas O'Grady, and here comes Mr. America.
A tour de force of a film. A monumental performance.
It came hard and fast. You probably know what I'm talking about theirs.
Oh, yeah.
How these premieres, talk shows, and these outlandish costume parties in the canyon.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, come on, I was 32, but it was so surreal, James. One night, me and Sally Beth Tolbert, you remember Sally Beth? She starred in that Chet Daniels picture, The Little Girl on the Train. This was before she got into that whole pink triangle thing. Anyhow, me and Sally Beth Tolbert had hooked up. She was a dime. She was trying to get me to play the lead in her directorial debut, Ride the Snake.
Oh, I love Ride the Snake.
Touche, James. So I'd gotten us this limo, hired me a couple of girls. We followed Mulholland all the way into Laurel Canyon where the executive producer, a guy named Don Boggs, threw in a real shindig. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. All these pinatas full of crystal and Molly, and guys wearing George Washington wigs. Anyhow, I'd finally gotten to a decent amount of cash. Gorgeous girls everywhere. And these birds were fresh too. You know what I mean? Very ripe. And listen, there's this thing that happens. When a guy lends himself a big picture in Hollywood, you ever walk into a hornet's nest? Probably not. Anyhow, I rip the pinata, get me a fistful of GHB. This one vixen walks over, asks me to meet her in the bathroom. Next thing you know, I'm 3 sheets to the wind. We're all at the Chateau Marmont, burning the candle at both ends. Total blackout. 2 weeks turns into 6 months. I remember almost nothing till one day I wakes me up next to a couple of extras when suddenly the doorbell rings. Before you know it, some whiz kid named Buffalo offered me a bang off his rig. What are you gonna do, right? I hadn't banged a shot in over a year. Of course I said yes. Feck!
You could have just said no. Why didn't you say no?
What's the fun in that? A cat brings you a bag of white and it's pure and the girls are fresh. One of them giving you the glass eye. You can't say anything but, well, sure thing, Buffalo. Of course I'll get back on the smack.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
No. The worst thing you ever heard is listening to the old man under the bridge telling you he lost the dime bag after the fact.
But there was a hiatus between Here Comes Mr. America and Ride the Snake. Why didn't you just go to rehab, try to clean up?
Because I got caught in Guatemala customs with Sally Beth Tolbert and that turncoat Latina. Don't you remember? They had me locked up for 47 feckin' days, James. Thank God Sally Beth was there. If she wasn't going through that whole pink triangle thing, I wouldn't have gotten the hookup with that brilliant lesbian prosecutor. Talk about a genius.
But the charges were dropped.
Of course the charges were dropped. They didn't have enough to prove conspiracy, and that whole trafficking thing was a setup no-how. I can't remember that girl's name. Cannot believe that fucking bitch turned on me. What was her name? I think it was Rosalind Sanchez, the cunt.
Did they ever catch up to Rosalind Sanchez?
She feckin' fled, James. And besides, second I got bail, we were starting production on Ride the Snake. Wasn't like I could just chase her down in Huehuetenango and have her come to Jesus.
Life in the fast lane. It's a cruel bride.
Look, I'm gonna be real with you, James. I don't remember shite when we began shooting Ride the Snake. I mean, yeah, I remember they had me doing the whole gigolo thing, and I'm walking around Guatemala City in a sombrero and some jean shorts, but I was so wrecked on the white you could have fried an egg on my forehead.
How did you juggle your addiction during the heat of a shoot?
Well, I started plugging. What else? I'd pop me a plug in mid-trailer between takes just to get through the scene without getting me the goosebumps and the heebie-jeebies. There was this one scene where I had to make out with, what was his name? I can't remember. It wasn't in the script though, and I'm jonesing like a son of a bitch, and he honestly smelled like mothballs and human garbage, so I puked right all over his face, and he starts yelling obscenities at me and cursing at the whole crew, and they end up just nixing his part and replacing him with that weird transsexual Ronaldo, which was way better, because for starters, Ronaldo might have been weird, but goddammit, he smelled like lemon butter, and secondly, I'm fairly certain he or she or whatever the fuck she liked to be called was always fresh off the street, because she was always coming to me trailer with one of them delicious strawberry banana smoothies and more than plugs.
That character must have been a delight to perform.
Take that back. Take that back. There ain't nothing no fun about playing a gigolo, James. You think that's fun, selling your shit? You think it's fun pretending to be somebody who sells your body on the streets for a few bucks and a smoothie? You see, I didn't do that as acting, James. I became me a gigolo. I had to black it and blot it all out, James. I had to block it out because he was so ferocious. Going down on these chumps under the bridges, do you know what that's like? It ain't no fun, James. It's never about playing a part. Like I said, it's about becoming the motherfucking part.
Because of Stanislavski, the Method, Strasbourg.
Correct. And listen to me now, James. These women were top-of-the-line sadomasochists. I'm talking made Last Tango in Paris look like the Saturday Evening Post. You remember that one scene where I'm grabbing Ethel Hammerstein and tossing her around?
You're talking about the scene where you pinned her up against the wall. I loved that scene.
Yep, you betcha. That one. Talk about the total package. Part Israeli, part Colombian. Anyhow, before the scene, Ethel tells me to go full throttle. So I'm thinking, all right, Ethel, this is gonna be bunches of fun. While we're shooting, Ethel Hammerstein starts kissing me real hard, clawing at me back. I have these deep scratch marks like a cat, and I think there was blood. So I pick her up by the waist, throws her up against the wall, and was holding her beneath her legs when out of the blue, she starts pounding at me chest, ripping at me hair, and screaming, "Let go of me, you animal. You let go of me right now." And what's crazy is, this was before the love scene.
Oh, Montgomery. It's my understanding you and Ethel Hammerstein actually
made love, yeah. That was real. Now, some critics banned it because it wasn't acting, they said. Well, of course it was acting. Acting isn't acting. That scene made Ethel Hammerstein a star. Gorgeous legs. I'm so proud of Sally Beth Tolbert for allowing that to happen.
Was there ever a reconciliation?
What?
Between you and Ethel?
I honestly have no idea.
What are you talking about?
I honestly have no idea what you're talking about.
There was that scathing article that came out.
What article? Article? What article? You talking about the Dublin Times? You talking about the Belfast Times? What article? Belfast? Dublin? What? What paper? What periodical? Belfast? Dublin? Oh, article.
Oh, heavens me.
James, listen to me. This was my last picture. After the whole thing with Ride the Snake, I'm told I rode all the way to Canada on a motorbike I jacked from some local. But I got no idea. I could have flown to Vancouver and bought the bike there. You probably know better than I do. Do you happen to remember the actor Leonard Chesterfield?
Good old Lenny. What a guy.
Well, apparently Leonard Chesterfield told Don Boggs I just showed up one day at his flat in Miami, fried out of my gourd on the mescaline. And supposedly I kept telling old Lenny some story about having just spent 3 months on a reservation, living in Oklahoma in a loincloth and smoking fentanyl with some cheap Native American who calls herself New Earth Mud. I honestly have no idea if that even happened. That's a common theme.
I find all of this very difficult to believe.
I try to be honest now, James. That's a big thing for me. Telling the truth. I think during those next 2 decades I remember about 5%. That's it. It was a near and total blackout.
What a nightmare.
What are you going to do, James?
How do you cope with that feeling of loss and depravity and despair?
I don't think you understand what happens when you're born into this. At some point the lights flicker out. After finishing Ride the Snake, I moved into this squatter's village on Hastings Street in Vancouver. I don't know why I did this, James, and I don't know what you know about Hastings Street, but it makes the skid look like the Palisades. I had me this room on the 3rd floor of this abandoned hotel, busted pipes, lot of bloodstains, vagabonds coming and going at all hours of the night, and they're squatting on cheap mattresses or metal folding chairs. I got these orifices that are red and yellow and smell like rotten cheese. There's guns in the corner, empty baggies on the floor. Look round me one night, saw this old basehead, he's nodding out, got spittle dripping off his lips, and a dirty rig dangling from his left artery. What do?
No.
What do?
No.
I walk over, yank it out of his forearm, shoot it in my own arm. Look out the window, and suddenly I had a vision.
A vision?
It was in that moment that I says to myself, I'm going to give up everything I know now and I love, and I'm going to do this instead for the rest of my life. That's what it means to be born into this, James. It means it feels like you got no feckin' hope. Like you got no love. Like you got no ma and da anymore. Like I got no choice.
How old were you?
35 years old. Lost everything, James. Me career, me dignity, me self-respect. They stopped taking me calls, labelled me everything under the sun. Burnout, street urchin, chlamydia head. Didn't even attend Ma's funeral.
I'm sorry to hear that, Montgomery.
It's like one day you're a kid and you have this dream. And your whole life you just want to do that one thing. Problem is you can't really get there. Because there's this other thing standing there. This thing that is pulling you in. And it keeps taking everything from you. Until there's nothing but you and an empty room, an empty bottle, and a hard craving. And before you know it, 15 feckin' years are gone, James. And then 20. And now you're a 50-year-old man sleeping behind a trash dumpster somewhere in Vancouver, Canada, with about 200 empties beside you, and you're down in the backwash at the bottom of every bottle just to get a fix. You could have gotten an Oscar, and your arms and legs are quivering and buckling so badly you have to crawl along the cement, and you just want to scream, Hello! Hello! Missy! Can you help me, please? Is there anybody out there who can help me? Can somebody please just lend me a hand? Give me a bottle of Canadian Club or a sandwich. But it's 3 a.m. on a Sunday and you're about to have another seizure because Bad Bunny Liquors don't open till noon.
So how did it change, Montgomery?
I don't know. For me, I just ran out of everything. And I started painting. And then I started feeling joy again.
And suddenly your art is making waves. You're a huge hit in the Far East.
I don't know why. It's circles. That's it. Every painting is a circle. Black circle, red circle, white circle. Each on its own different colored canvas. I like painting circles. I don't see it as a symbol or anything. I just see it as something silly and absurd. For some reason, these bozos buy it.
Why circles?
Why not?
I love that. Following our program, Montgomery Hunt traveled back to St. Petersburg, Russia, where he opened his new exhibit. Before traveling home, he phoned me at the studio. I was glad to take his call, because he thanked me, and he also informed me that he had reconnected with Sally Beth Tolbert and been offered his first role in over 20 years, playing the lead in her new biopic on Marlowe Hemlock. Thank you all for watching. My name is James Miller, and this is The James Miller Show.